What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where what do? We process blue for you. I'm Alex Zetlow, a Carolina Panthers beat writer for the Charlotte Observer, and today I'm joined by our indelible columnist, Scott Fowler, who is stepping in for Mike Kay, who has been downgraded from questionable to out this week, but will definitely be active for the rest of this week, including the game this weekend. But Scott, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's been a long time.
We got a great show for you today. We're going to talk Bryce Young being, quote, day-to-day with an ankle injury and what exactly that means, as in what that means literally, but also for the team this week as it prepares to take on the Buffalo Bills on Sunday at home. We're going to renew the Chuba Rico Dowdle discussion, which I'm sure you guys are absolutely not tired of hearing. And then we'll discuss what a realistic final record could be for this team and a couple of other things. But before all this, Scott, you mentioned it's been a long time. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. The last time you were here on this show, which was an honor of a lifetime, I'm sure, something strange happened after we finished recording. If you'll remember, a year ago to the day that this episode comes out, October 22nd, 2024, Andy Dalton was the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. Then he gets in a car accident that suspiciously only injures his right thumb. He gets removed from the lineup. Bryce Young re-enters the starting job, and the rest is history. Today, you are joining me as another quarterback change, a temporary one, that is, could be afoot in Carolina. So my question, do you think your presence on Processing Blue has any bearing on roster changes the Carolina Panthers make? How do you explain such a phenomenon, Scott?
It's unexplainable, but I totally believe that my presence here is, in a way, I'm sort of the Andy Dalton of this show. I had been the Bryce Young, and I just come in for backup duty every now and then. So the fact that Dalton again is, in the news, so to speak, is only fitting as I make my triumphant return.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm the Hendon Hooker QB for Union. Right.
White. Yes.
Yeah, or Mike White, which is news. He is going to be added to this quarterback room if he hasn't already been added by the time that you're listening to this. But okay, Scott, thank you for entertaining me on that intro. But let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this podcast. I don't think we need to dwell too much on the New York Jets game personally. Everyone kind of knows what happened. The defense was phenomenal. The unit only allowed 6 points, which is the least amount of points the Panthers have given up on the road since 2017. J.C. Horn had 2 interceptions, became the first Panther to have a 2-interception game since James Bradbury, who did that in October of 2019. There are a couple other crazy defensive stats that we can go through that I don't want to bore you guys all with. But I do want to ask you about Bryce Young and his performance prior to his ankle injury. He went 15 of 25 for 138 yards, 1 touchdown. He goes out in the third quarter, doesn't return. You're watching this game. What is going through your mind once you see Bryce, the Panthers' franchise quarterback, go into the locker room while the team is on the precipice of being over 500 for the first time in a really long time? What's going through your head?
Well, what I was thinking at that time, Alex, was they'll win this game, but it better not be too serious. I mean, I think they can get through a game or 2 or 3 with Andy Dalton holding the fort a little bit, but you can't really make it happen long term with that. It's just, you can make it happen in a game, for instance, like the one they're about to play, in which case he's mostly going to need to hand off. But in a game where you require a lot of quarterback mobility and stuff, Dalton just doesn't have that. So that was a scary moment, I'm sure, for Panthers fans at this point. And luckily, I don't think it's, any more serious than it sounds like it is. But yeah, that's where I was there.
What have you made of Bryce Young's play the past 3 weeks? I mean, it's been mostly turnover free. It seems to me like it's a lot of it has been beneficial from the run game. and from this offensive line that, despite getting beat up all these places, has done a good job protecting him. I mean, just generally speaking, what have you thought of Bryce's play through the past couple weeks?
I thought he's been good. Good enough to win. I think we're seeing Bryce sort of come into himself in his third year, where he just looks comfortable to me, most of the time in the pocket. There's a couple of times in games where stuff that doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but Rico Dowdle, for as great as he's been, missed at least one or two blitz pickups in games, and it should have been a sack. And Bryce just sidesteps it so neatly, you almost don't even realize until you watch it in slow motion how hard that is to do. He's made more plays like that recently. That said, I didn't think he played very well against the Jets, but he didn't play poorly. He allowed, by not having a turnover, he allowed them to win that game. They didn't need him to do a ton in that game. They will certainly need him to do more as they're about to come into the real meat of their schedule. Right now, Alex, I would say Bryce, who for much of the first two seasons has been a lower tier starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm talking between probably ranked 20 and to 30 out of 32 teams. Now, to me, he's a mid-tier NFL quarterback. The hope is, of course, that he becomes a top-tier, top 10 NFL quarterback. Not there yet, but certainly more promising than it's been.
Absolutely. He has been playing more promising. And I think a lot of that has to do with his play marrying with Dave Canales' vision for the offense in many ways. If you just look at some advanced stats this past weekend, his average depth of target was 6 yards. A lot of times when you see that, you think, oh my gosh, this offense isn't explosive at all. That stat used to be a pejorative his first couple years in the NFL. Now that's kind of like, okay, he's getting the ball out quicker. Oh, he's being more decisive. At least that's how it feels to me. And, if you look at his adjusted completion percentage, that's 80% adjusted completion percentage. That essentially means that 80% of the time the ball is in the air, like it should be caught. Not saying it does get hauled in by the receivers or the defense could make a really good play on it, but he is showing that accuracy that he had in college, showing that creativity in the backfield, like you said, being able to sidestep pass rushers and all these things. So I definitely agree. Now he's day-to-day, though. And day-to-day is right. Day-to-day is I guess, the designation that head coach Dave Canales gave about a couple hours after NFL Network, ESPN, and a couple other sites reported that he is definitely going to miss the game against the Bills with a, quote, high ankle sprain. Canales would not go that far. Canales just said that actually if Bryce can play, we're going to play him, and that there is still the possibility that he could do that. You were in that press conference, Scott, when Dave was talking about day to day. Is there, in your eyes, in your opinion, is there any conceivable way that he starts, or is Andy Dalton getting this ball?
Andy Dalton's going to get this ball, I would say, with 99% certainty. I mean, I guess there's always a miracle around the corner you could hope for, but no, you don't want Bryce out there, hobbling around on an ankle, and they don't want that either. I think this is gamesmanship. And I think, honestly, Alex, I don't know what you think. You can tell me. But on Wednesday, I don't think he's going to say they'll say, well, Andy took the reps on Wednesday practice. And, but Bryce, maybe Bryce is out there or maybe he's not. But in any case, if he is, he's working to the side. Mm-hmm. And then they'll get to Friday. And then maybe by Friday, maybe they declare him out. But maybe they'll say Friday it's a game time decision. I think they're going to push this as far as they can, which to me is a little bit of an exercise in futility. But they have won 3 games in a row. So I'm going to give the coaching staff a little bit of a break. But you were in there too. I mean, what did you think?
I mean, I essentially thought the same thing. I think you put it well. I think you put it like someone who has watched an NFL team since its inception operate. because that's what they do. We even asked Dave specifically, hey, respectfully, is this like a gamesmanship sort of move? And he was just like, nah, this is just what I think, kind of sticking to the company.
Yeah. And he also said he wouldn't say what kind of ankle injury it was. He just would say,
Right.
just
Right.
think.
Yeah.
Now, so, he's trying. I mean, it's the best team he's had as a head coach, which, he hadn't had a whole lot of those opportunities yet, but he's a little nervous up in this rare air that he's at right now and about to play one of the big time teams in the NFL. And he's looking for every little tiny potential advantage, make Sean McDermott think about Bryce maybe playing for, at least 20 minutes more this week as they prepare. So I get it. It's a little bit silly, but that's the way the NFL has always run. Nothing unusual about what's going on. But Andy Dalton, I think, will play. And like I said previously, Bryce to me has played so well lately. And I wrote a column recently that he's starting to remind me of Baker Mayfield, the good Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Baker, not the Panthers Baker. He's moving so well in the pocket, making quick decisions. He's made 2 fourth quarter comebacks, really 3. Arizona didn't work out, but he got him there, close to it. And what would have happened if they'd won that game, man? I mean, they'd be 5-2 right now. But in any case, they won some really close games, and now that the schedule is going to get a lot tougher. But this game has to be Dalton. I mean, this is just Dalton. It's a good game for him to play too. He's mainly going to be handing the ball off and standing tall in the pocket and throwing it on play action. I mean, and he's ideally suited for that. You do not want it long term, and you don't want him playing against Green Bay if you can help it, because Green Bay is like first in rush defense. Buffalo is 31st, and so in Green Bay you're going to have to make a lot of things happen in the passing game, and ideally you have Bryce back for that, but who knows?
I'm glad you brought up the reliance on the run game that the Panthers will need to have this weekend, because this is a perfect segue to a debate that over the past 3-4 weeks we've maybe had 50 times, whether it's between me and Mike, me and you and Mike, although I don't know what you and Mike really talk about. I shouldn't act like I do know what y'all talk about, but like I imagine some of it has to do with what the Panthers should do with Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, the quote good problem that these guys have. Just a quick rehash: Chuba Hubbard was the starting running back for the first 3 weeks of the season, gets injured, calf injury. Rico Dowdle, who is fresh off of a 1,000-yard season with the Dallas Cowboys, comes in and doesn't just run like his 2024 version of himself, runs even better. Breaking records left and right, breaking several records that Christian McCaffrey has held in the franchise. And so he's absolutely undeniably has a hot hand. Chuba Hubbard gets healthy this past weekend against the Jets and he plays. And then all of a sudden, the rushing total does take a dip. Now, several people can say that's a correlation, that the Jets actually do have an underrated rush defense. But there is this sentiment out there that both of these running backs in particular get better as games go on. They get a better understanding of what the defenses are doing. You're able to set up runs early in the game, and what that means is you're like, if you run through a play one time, you see how the defense reacts, and then you can break that tendency the next time you run that same exact play, all these things. Scott, do you have an opinion on who should start between Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle? Do you think that they should split series? Like, we haven't really gotten your thoughts on record about this. What do you have a codified opinion about this?
Codified, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you like that. You like that. Did I even use that properly?
Mean. It sounds very legally. Okay.
Did I even use that right, Scott?
Yeah, I don't. maybe.
How to
Um,
find things to arrange into a systematic code. So
okay.
I guess it's not exactly right, but like,
Yeah.
do you have?
Meaning like set in stone, sort of.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I do. And that is, I think I don't care who starts. If it's going to make it better for the team locker room for Chuba to start because he has been your bell cow running back for a while now and he's got the huge contract, I'm okay with that. But I would like to see Rico get 70% of the carries right now until something else happens, and it will. Who knows? Somebody will get banged up, and one of them's going to need to have almost all the carries in a game not long from now, because that's the way running backs are. But in much the same way that a sixth man in the NBA can be, that team's best scorer. Del Curry, was a NBA Sixth Man of the Year one time, was the Hornets' leading scorer for decades until Kemba Walker finally broke that record. But he was always coming off the bench. That's fine. If you want to make Rico Dowdle come off the bench and play the second series, that's fine. But right now, to me, Rico Dowdle is sort of your Jahmyr Gibbs, and Chuba is more your David Montgomery. They say they're, looking at Detroit sort of as one of their examples of how to do this thing. Well, and these guys both, probably resemble Montgomery a little bit more in that not many people could run 22 miles an hour like Gibbs did last night. But I mean, Rico at this point is got such a hot hand that I do think they're not quite using it to the full potential of riding it. Now, we'll say this, Alex, in the locker room on Monday, I was talking to Mitchell Evans, very, fun guy to talk to, rookie tight ends, been, surprisingly big part of the offense. He said he thought the Jets defense was the best defense they had played all year. So the Jets defense, they're strong. That was probably the rushing total was going down regardless to some extent, but I would say, the splitting carries was 17 and 14, I think, Rico having 17 in this last game. I'd like it, this one to be more like, 25 to 10 or something, 22 to 8, depending on how many carries they get. Because right now Dowdle is hot, and you got to ride that because it just doesn't. It's not going to last forever. A heater never does. So get what you can out of it. I would say right now. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I probably do lean on the side that Chuba Hubbard is a really, really good runner. And that, yes, while Rico has had a really great stretch of games, Chuba's is probably better in the short yardage situations than Rico is. Just like I'm just remembering the fourth down run that the Panthers had against the Jets. I think on the team's second series, that's a run that I think Chuba would have picked up. I mean, maybe not. But like he is just so good at finding like 2 or 3, like 1 to 2 to 3 yards of just moving the chains and also getting into the end zone. You typically think of a short yardage back being these like massive dudes. Well, Chuba's not of that body profile, but he's still really good in the short yardage situation. I also just think Chuba's a really good runner just in general. And the fact that Rico has absolutely emerged is definitely a product of Rico's strong, violent running ability, but also the fact that they're playing not great rush defenses. And I think Chuba would have had really productive days as well in similar situations. Not to take anything away from either guy, but I say all this, but I'm not team split the series either, because I think that a rhythm is necessary. So I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to make the decision as a coaching staff, like far away. I probably would just say, hey, Rico, you're playing great right now. I don't have a justification for you not to get 20 carries a game right now. So I would just give it to him. But I will have an asterisk saying that Alex does really appreciate Chuba Hubbard and think that.
Yeah, and you should. I mean, you can't just throw away what Chuba's done. And Dowdle's, he's been hurt sometimes. So there's running backs get hurt. Dowdle, who knows how long this lasts. The one example of in Panthers lore I'll give you.
Oh, this is what we need.
That's why I'm here. Is this Panthers lore for sure? But Temanga Biaka-Batuka, who was the number 8 overall pick in 1996, I think it was a running back who was streaky and unfortunately injury prone, because I think Temanga really would have been a good NFL back. But he was prone to some Dowdle-esque streaks. And at one point in his life, George Seifert was the coach. Temanga Biaka-Batuka in the first quarter in a game went for, oh gosh, I should look it up, but it was something like 3 touchdowns and 150 yards. One of the most amazing quarters I've ever seen anyone play. Seifert was alternating series between Biaka-Batuka and I don't know who else at the time. He continued to alternate series, even with Biaka-Batuka on that kind of heater, to his own detriment. Never worked out for George Seifert here. And I thought what happened in that case was he just stayed a little too closely to a plan he had put in place in his mind already. And it was in there, and it was, by God, we're going to alternate series. And I don't care if Temanga just broke off another 70-yarder. It was the best game Temanga ever had. He could have set the Panthers record in that game and gained 250 yards if they had given in the ball correctly. Rico Dowdle right now is on a similar path. There's been a lot of national headlines this week about Jahmyr Gibbs. Amazing game. Oh my gosh. Well, he had 218 total yards. Rico Dowdle did that more than that 2 times in a row. And it's ridiculous. And here they come against another defense that's very vulnerable. So that's why I think he needs, but between catching the ball too, I mean, he needs 25 to 28. He needs kind of almost McCaffrey type numbers in this coming up game. Not long term, because this will not last, but right now, it's like, you keep your starting pitcher out there when he's striking one guy out after another.
Absolutely. Scott, your headline after the Jets game. As Carolina Panthers win 3rd straight, it's time to reconsider what's possible. So let's reconsider what's possible, Scott. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm gonna step in the spotlight with you, and we're just going to give brief predictions. It can be as detailed as you want for the rest of the season. And I'm not saying, hey, game by game necessarily, but before the year, I had them at 8-9. And through the first 4 weeks, that looked really silly. They go on a 3-0 run. They're 3 straight wins. And now all of a sudden that's seeming possible, not necessarily guaranteed, far from guaranteed, but at least that seems possible now. Their next slew of games: Buffalo, Green Bay, New Orleans, which is winnable, Atlanta, who they almost always split with, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and then they finish up with mostly divisional opponents after that. When I look at the rest of this season, I think that 8-9 is possible. I think that 9-8 is possible. I think they cannot quite make a playoff run, but I think that this idea of Panthers' first winning season since 2017, I think that is within the team's grasp. Scott, is that just an absolutely crazy thing to say?
No, not at this point. I was pessimistic at the beginning of the year because I've just seen too many Panthers teams lose, to be too optimistic until it's proven. But now this team's proven a little something to me, and they're 4-3. And my preseason pick was 6-11, and I now I've started to think that will be a little too low. Because I think they'll beat New Orleans twice, and that'll be 6. I think they'll probably beat Atlanta again, and so that'd be 7.
Okay.
And then they've got, they got to get one more out of a bunch of teams that most of which are going to make the playoffs. So I don't know which one that'll be, but I kind of think that, really I think 8 may be about right now. Still don't see them getting to 9. right now, but it's possible. 9-8 and a playoff wild card is possible. I mean, it's kind of fun. I looked at the NFL more advanced standings today, and the Panthers. Do you know where they sit in the NFC right now out of 16 NFC teams?
Um, no.
The season ended today.
If the season ended today, you mean just like 1 out of 16? I'll say 7th.
Well, not that good, but ninth. Normally they're like 15th, so they're actually in the running, I guess you would say. But they have front loaded their schedule with a lot of beatable teams. So we'll see. But I think, I think they're better than I thought they would be. I thought they'd be 6-11. I'm very good at picking them on a week-to-week basis, I will say. Okay, not really good at being on a seasonal basis.
I was gonna give you your flowers without you introducing them yourself, and we'll do that in the next question. But I do want to borrow your brain and your eyes, who have seen this franchise since its inception. And I'm going to posit a strange question to you. Does this team remind you of the 2003 team at all? And let me just set this up real quick. So before the season began, I talked to Brenson Buckner, who obviously was on that 2003 team, one of the best defensive lines of that season, and really in Carolina Panthers. It was him. It was Chris Jenkins. It was Julius Peppers, you know him. And that 2003 team was born from the horrid year that was that 2001 team. And I just can't stop finding symmetry between the two. In 2001, the Panthers hit rock bottom. In 2023, the Panthers couldn't find rock bottom. They kept trying to use their shovel to keep digging further. In 2024, they used, I believe in 2002, they used a first-round draft pick on an offensive. No, well, in 2002, they used their first-round draft pick on Julius Peppers. And in 2024, the Panthers traded up into the first round and tried to use the draft aggressively that way. There's just like, okay, I'm kind of butchering this a little bit, so maybe you're about to poke so many holes in this argument. But when you take into account that this team is also super run heavy, the 2003 team was super run heavy. Like, I don't know, man. Am I crazy? Like, maybe they're not going to make a Super Bowl run like they did in 2003. But in 2025, it seems like they're on a path to building toward a well-balanced, all-around team that is at least on the way to looking like that version of the Carolina Panthers. This was actually, in asking this question, this was one of those situations where the more I talk, the less I believe myself. But what do you make of the word salad that I just threw at you?
Well, I would say there's some components of that. I believe the run defense part is right, and like most NFL teams, a team that went 1-15 in 2001 was not as bad as you think. In fact, I remember doing a story. 20 people on that team were on the 2003 Super Bowl team and had made serious contributions. 20, so that's a lot. Mm-hmm. So I would say this team is probably a little bit more like 2002, which was the year before they made the big run, when they weren't quite ready, but they were. You could sort of see the pieces kind of coming in. John Fox had just taken over. They suddenly got very run heavy. They were still a couple of talent pieces away, but they were just getting there with T-Mac being a rookie this year. Peppers was a rookie in 2002, a very excellent rookies. They ended up like 7-9, and that's kind of where I think this team will end up 8-9, 9-8, 7-10, somewhere in there. But yeah, I mean, there's some parts to it. Bryce has not proven yet that he can do all the things Jake Delhomme can do, but he can do some of them. And they're both certainly more similar to each other than they are to either as similar to Cam, who's a different body type and a different everything, really, for their other Super Bowl team. But yeah, this feels a little bit like 2003. But like I say, I don't think we're 03 yet. I think we're maybe 02, where there was some building blocks. This team's got building blocks, but still, they're going to be out talented, Alex, in some of these games. They're just literally not going to have a Micah Parsons or a couple of they don't have a Josh Allen. They don't have. I mean, not many people do. But I'm just saying, like when they're playing some of these teams, they just got a lot of pieces, man. And this team's got some pieces.
Right. Okay, that was very kind of you. I think I did mean the 2003 era. So
yeah, I get you. Yeah,
but yeah, I think you agreed with my sentiment a little bit more than I was expecting. So that's all fun. One thing we haven't been agreeing on this year is game by game predictions, and that has spelled wonderful things for you and terrible things for me. I am 2-5 on the year on these game predictions, which is just absolutely horrendous. I'm not going to say Mike K's record because he would not like that, but it's closer to mine than it is to yours. You are 6-1 on the year. Like pretty much every time Scott makes a prediction, it happens like that. So I wanted to get your game prediction before we close out this show. Panthers go into Buffalo, or sorry, the Buffalo Bills come into Bank of America Stadium this weekend. Their offensive stats are undeniable. They average 27.8 points a game. That's fourth in the league. They average 378.3 yards a game. That's third in the league. They're pretty much top 10 in all these important offensive stats, save for third down conversion rate, which is they're still 11th, 41% third down conversion rate. But that's also because they're so explosive. Sometimes they don't even get to third down. Really good rush offense as well, like 151 rush yards per game, which is number one in the league. Now, their defense is another story. As we hit on, they are they're 32nd in opponent rush yards per rush. They're giving up 5.8 yards per rush, which is something that I believe Rico Dowd on Chuba Hubbard and this offensive line sees, and their eyes light up. They're 31st in total rushing offense, as you've mentioned several times. Their pass defense is pretty good. They're top 10 in a couple different categories. I'm not just going to throw out bland stats at you. But when I look at this, and I'll give my prediction first because it's going to be wrong and we're going to end up on Scott's anyway. But my prediction is that the Panthers receive the Bills and the Bills ultimately end their winning streak, the Panthers' winning streak. I have the game prediction final being Bills 38, Panthers 21. I think the Panthers showed that they're good and that they can play against such an offense and hang with them for a while. But I think the Josh Allen experience kind of gets them in the end. Scott, do you agree? Or who do you think wins this one?
Well, that's all a great lead up. And I will say, and I do not mind putting it out there because it is in the paper every week and online, Mike K is also 2-5. So the two of you together have not as many victories as myself. So,
yeah,
but let's remember that I think you won this contest, or at least tied to win it last year. So I'm just getting lucky right now, and this is probably going to be the end of my lucky streak. However, I'm going to pick the Panthers in an upset here. The way I think it can be done, and I can't believe I'm doing it, because to pick Dalton over Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, seems so silly to me, but even as I say it. However, I think they're going to run for close to 200 yards. I think they're going to make it close the whole way, slow the game down. And so anyway, I think the final score is Panthers 27, Bills 26.
Okay, so you're doing this contrarian thing again.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And you're able to home team. This would be the biggest win they've had all year. And again, it is an upset. Buffalo's favored by, I think, 7.5. But in any case. I think the Panthers can make this happen. You got to slow the game way down. And, but I think, defensively, we haven't talked a ton about Derek Brown and et cetera, but Panthers playing really well defensively right now, enough that I don't think they'll give up 40. I think it'll be in the 20s, a game that's in the 20s. If it gets into the 30s, Buffalo's going to win that. So the Panthers need to hold this thing down into the 20s.
Cool. Well, you just heard what is going to happen this weekend, so I'm sorry for spoiling it for you all. Scott, thanks for coming on the show. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was great. I wait to do it again in another year or so when Andy Dalton something else is happening with him.
Yeah, something else is happening with that quarterback room. Well, thanks as always for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Scott Fowler and myself and our wonderful producer, Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Scott, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.